Welcome to Be Truly Heard with me, coach and voice expert Anne Leatherland. If you're a woman in business looking to speak with authority, warmth and authenticity, this is the podcast for you. We'll explore valuable personal growth strategies alongside vocal skills, so you can overcome confidence barriers and communicate what's inside. Your voice matters. It's time to be truly heard. Hello and welcome to Be Truly Heard with me, your host, Anne Leatherland. In this series, we've been looking at showing up as you. So far, we've looked at speaking in various contexts, in high-stakes situations, through human connection, and also in writing emails, if you like, reflecting our voice in that way. Go back and have a listen if you missed these. By the way, I do have a dedicated Be Truly Heard podcast site now. It's at betrulyheardpodcast.co.uk. But stay with me for now. I have a question for you. Have you ever spoken up in a meeting or on a phone call, in a presentation, or even just simply to a friend or a colleague and thought, there's something a bit off. I don't really know what it is. I don't really sound like me or feel like me. It happens. Stick around because in today's episode I'm discussing the link between your voice and yourself. And I mean your inner self. More than a link actually, it's an integration of the two. Well, you might be thinking to yourself, well, of course my voice is to do with myself. I speak every day, it's part of myself, right? Yes, it is, but very often what we say is also coloured by our thoughts, emotions, and if you like, that voice in the head that sometimes gets in the way. I was talking about that in my last solo episode, and I have done it before in the podcast quite early on actually, if you want to go back and have a listen. So is what is coming out truly you? Is it what you really want to come out? That's what I'm talking about here in terms of getting the self and your voice integrated. It's the way that we make a message land, or at least part of it. You'll see as we go through this series that there are three main factors that need to work together, and this one is the self. The self needs to work with the voice. It needs to be integrated. You're used to your physical voice. As I've just said, it's a part of you. Think about this though. Can you point to it? You know, if I say point to your hand, well, you know, this is my hand, or your foot or your leg or any other part of your body. Can you point to your voice? Just have a go now. I bet you're pointing here, aren't you? Okay, that's where our vocal folds, you might call them vocal cords, sit. Inside that gristly bit, the larynx, which you can feel very gently with your fingers. That protects those vocal cords. But they don't work just on their own. I can't point there and say this is my voice, because it's not. This is my larynx. These are my vocal folds inside it. Why can't I say this is my voice? Well, your voice depends on a number of things. Your brain, the way you think, your body systems. Fundamentally, it's about connecting your breath, the flow and the pressure of it, with those vocal folds so that they chop up that breath stream and make a sound, and hopefully a sound in the way that you want to. You can be in control of that, but there are other things that can impose on it as well. Your nervous system. Obviously our nervous system works everything in our body to one extent or another, but with your voice it's particularly important. You know, your larynx was really a part of your safety system, which is why when you feel upset, you close down. It was part of helping you to protect your airway in times of fight or flight and to build up the energy that you needed maybe to run. And then there's the resonance space, which sits above the larynx, in the mouth and the throat, and sometimes the nasal cavities. These are just a few of the things. The result of all those things is a voice. So we can't just point to it. It doesn't exist as one thing in your body, as I've said, like your arm or your leg or your hand. It's the result of different processes. Now here's the thing. If your self-belief and your vocal expression are disconnected, people hear the gap. So in other words, if your true self, your inner voice, isn't getting out, then we will perceive it for ourselves, others will perceive it. Things don't quite ring true, or maybe people can't quite put their finger on it. You sense it as, I don't feel quite myself, or I didn't sound like me. And this is what I call the voice credibility gap. And it's the gap between your capability as a person and the sound you make and the way that that is used in your communication and the way it transfers to others. So just to make it simpler, we have our physical voice, we have the voice in the head, which is the thing that tries to keep us safe. You might call it the inner critic if you like. I talked about it last time. And it does give us many, many more negative messages than positive ones because it wants to keep us safe. Now that can affect the way that your voice comes out. And it can mean that your inner voice, your true inner voice, the way you really want to show up, can be damped down or even not get out at all. So people are very perceptive and can pick up on subtle changes just as you can. And that leads to enhancing that gap. So working to close it is important. Let's think of the ways that your voice might betray that gap. So there might be a bit of a wobble. And from that, people pick up that you're not quite sure of yourself, or maybe you're nervous, and then they get nervous for you. You know, have you ever been to a performance where somebody wasn't quite right, wasn't quite into it, and you could sense the nerves, and you feel it for them. It transfers to other people. Maybe they used an inappropriate tone. Maybe you didn't like their voice. Maybe it failed to engage. You know, there are people who speak like this all the time, and they trail off at the end of sentences. And that dying off of energy, they don't put across the feeling that what they're saying is important or worthwhile. It may be at a deep level, but something somewhere is getting in the way of that. Maybe there's not enough pitch variety, so I sound a bit like this, which can get very, very boring. We all know those, don't we? Maybe it's very airy, which can sound very vulnerable, depending on what kind of mic you're speaking. Or too fast, like this, and it seems like you want to escape and people can't process what you're saying. And it makes them feel on edge. It probably makes you feel on edge as well. For me, these are all important, but the fundamental, the vocal tone, made by coordinating your breath with your vocal folds, it's not just breathing, it's a coordination, and doing that calmly in a way that allows you to say to that voice in your head, it's okay, I've got this, is the thing that's going to cut through. It's the thing that's going to make the difference. You know, when people say, just breathe, or stand up straight, or worst of all, be confident, you've got this, it might work a bit. You might feel a little bit better, but that doesn't last, does it? There's still some misgivings underneath because that voice in the head is so strong. It's convinced that we're in danger, even when we're not. You can change the way you stand. You can walk differently and try to speak with more gravitas, but somehow the message still doesn't land as if it's you. And you don't feel quite right about it. You know, I watch politicians all the time, and I can see the ones who are genuinely being themselves and the ones who've learned to put on a certain stance, to speak in a certain way, to use certain hand movements, or have been told to lower their voices so that they sound a little bit more serious. You'll know the ones I mean. And if you look at the eyes, in the eyes, you don't see that connection with self, because they know that it's rehearsed confidence. It's pretense, if you like, and act as if. Now, don't get me wrong, act as if is a great coaching tool. And there are times when act as if or fake it until you make it can work. So, for example, it may register some safety with your nervous system if you do this and help you to just carry on. But that's just part of the story. I would rather there was something real from the inside to create an integrated confidence. In other words, it comes from your mind, your body, and yourself working together. It doesn't come from the outside. So how do we build integrated confidence? By developing self-trust. Do you really trust yourself, or do you rely just on the faking it part? Do you sort of go, right, come on then, I'm going into this meeting and I'm going to be like XYZ? Think of a time you did that and it perhaps didn't work. What do you think went wrong? Or maybe there's a time when it did go right. So what was the difference? We need to be clear on why we are doing something and clear on our values and our beliefs in order to show up as ourselves. If our beliefs are acting against our values, then it's highly likely that we won't show up in that way. I seem to be always saying this, but there is a podcast on showing up in your values and beliefs earlier on from last year, so you can go back and have a listen to that one if you'd like to know more about it. But we need to overcome beliefs that go against our values. So if we have a value of showing up as the person we are and being there with integrity, and on the other hand we believe that we're not really good enough, that belief is going against the value. It's not helping us. So we need to overcome this and work to overcome it. Just as a little exercise, I want you to just have a think, or if you're in a position to, jot down your 3 most highly held values. You can pause the recording, can't you, to do this? But do come back. So what are they? And do you show up in a way that brings those values into the room? When you're speaking in a meeting, a presentation, to a friend, to a colleague, how do those values show up? It's a great start to understanding how yourself might start to integrate with your voice. Because if your values are solid and you believe that what you are saying is worthwhile, then you'll show up as yourself and your voice will follow you. I'll give you an example of somebody I worked with. Now, this lady had a voice issue. I'll call her C. She had a voice issue. It was croaky, it was tight, it felt vulnerable. She was an experienced trainer, but the voice issue affected her deeply. She went to have it investigated in terms of the medical side, but there was nothing wrong. She just couldn't show up as herself, not even in her normal life, and began to get worried that everyone would judge her voice. And so she began to judge it herself. So we worked in the Be Truly Heard programme, and actually for some time beyond, and discovered that it was about self-trust when it came down to it, and what I call mind balance, being able to speak to that voice in the head and say, hey, thank you for giving me that safety message, but actually I'm okay. I know that what I have to say is worthwhile, and I know that people will be engaged by it. Easier said than done, isn't it? We did various exercises so that she came to an understanding of who she is in terms of her voice use and what was holding her back, and how to actually work with that so that she could do the job. We developed a number of different approaches, and the most powerful one, I think, is something I've called the reset, which she can use when she's speaking, and it integrates all three things: the body, how to use it successfully to speak well; the mind balance, how to deal with that inner critic, but also how to listen to it when you need to, because sometimes it helps us; and then how to get in touch with herself and what she really wants to say. So we integrate all three and the voice comes out, and that's what happened with her. The result, let's put it into real terms, shall we, in case you're thinking, yes, that's very nice. Well, she landed a 20k contract, a training contract, and she's gone from strength to strength, and I'm very proud of her. So what about this self-trust? What about strengthening it? Well, first of all, you learn about yourself, you do the work, and I mean deep work in terms of what makes you tick and why you behave in certain ways and what puts you off speaking and what gets in the way. Then there's practice and awareness. It takes time to change things. It doesn't happen immediately, but that's fine. Anything that's worthwhile takes the work. As far as I know in life, there are no easy fixes. There are very few anyway. Most things that are worthwhile take a little bit of time and effort. So I sounded a bit teacherish there, didn't I? But it's very true. Then you take the first step in your new knowledge about yourself, and you put yourself in a situation, having prepared, where you can just find the courage to step forward and say, hey, this is me. Positive self-talk helps. And I'm not being glib in this. I mean positive self-talk that really works, where we internalize it and we tell ourselves that different message, the one that's different from nobody will listen to me or what I have to say isn't worthwhile. We replace that with what I have to say is worthwhile. I'm really good at what I do. I'm worthy of speaking to these people and they will engage. If you do these kind of things, then you'll free your integrated confidence. It was there all along. What holds us back our confidence. We can't just go, oh, I'm going to be confident and get it from the outside, as I said earlier. We need to develop it. And that's what integrating self and voice is all about. So overall then, your voice reflects how much of yourself you're willing to stand behind. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences related to these ideas. You can find me at betrulyheardpodcast.co.uk and comment or leave me a review. I'd love a review if you've enjoyed this episode. Next time then, in 2 weeks, I'll be speaking with my guest Caris Gill about something that can help this self-trust and integrated confidence. And that's showing up as you through storytelling in your business. Join us then, and bye for now. Thanks for listening to Be Truly Heard. If something landed with you today, share it with a friend or leave a review. It really helps more women to find their voice. Want to go deeper? Join my email list for exclusive tips, resources, and invitations to events. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, remember, your voice is powerful. Let's make sure it's truly heard.